This is the BBC World Service. I'm Sana Safi. Happy New Year and welcome back to World of Wisdom, the place where we explore some of the personal issues that life turns up. When does love develop in an arranged marriage? If, after a decade, we feel that love has not come, does that mean that the marriage choice was a bad one? Many people around the world rely upon the wisdom and support of others in choosing the person they plan to spend their life with. The families of the bride or bridegroom help, sometimes an agency is involved, and increasingly these days, people use the internet. How do you cultivate love for someone that you find you have little in common with? And how important is love in a successful long-term relationship? Bek in Uzbekistan has 4 children with the woman he met with the help of his parents. He respects and values her, and yet he feels further from her now than he did when they first married. He contacted us via the BBC World of Wisdom website, wondering if he had a right to expect to find love, or whether, perhaps, love is just a romantic idea. We arranged for him to speak to our advisor, Imam Jamal Rahman.
My wife and I have been married for the last 12 years. I always thought that after getting married, love would simply follow. But in my case, that doesn't really seem to have happened. Well, now I'm wondering if I made the right choice. How important is love in a marriage? And my other question is that, is it true what I believed? That love can or will come eventually?
I am very hopeful. It has happened in my life. It has happened in my parents' life. I'm not saying it's universally possible. One point I wanted to make and ask you also, I learned this from my parents particularly. They taught their children in their marriage, to talk about what is going well in the marriage. What am I grateful for in the marriage? Can I ask you, in your marriage of 12 years, what are you grateful for?
Excellent question, and I think about it. So the story is that we met each other 2 weeks before our marriage. We knew each other through internet, and so I made the phone call to the family. I said, "Can I talk to your daughter?" To the mother of my wife, and yes, we chatted, we talked, but at that time, my 22 years old, and at that point I was living as a migrant in England. And it was all over the phone. And then after coming, we met each other for 2 weeks. So we had 3 meals together, all lunch. And then we had our marriage. In a way, I feel blessed. There are many things that are right and I'm grateful for, such as we have 4 healthy children. They are well raised. When we got married, newly married couple, and I had to go abroad and work as a migrant in another country, while my wife was the backbone of our marriage at that point. So she's very patient. She's more patient than me, in my opinion, about our marriage. And as well as having healthy children, we look after each other well. So she's always careful about if everything is ready for my trips that I go for work. On the other hand, I always do my best not to hurt her and always look after her well-being too. So there are many things that are right in this marriage.
For me, I learned from my parents to really count my blessings in my semi-arranged marriage. Because, in any marriage, especially arranged marriage, you don't know each other very well. It is very critical to communicate, to get in touch, to get to know the other. The Quran says, Allah, out of a cosmic design, has created nations, tribes, men and women, so you might come to know the other on a human level. So it's really both a joy and a responsibility to get to know the other. Are you familiar with Rumi, the 13th century sage Rumi, poet?
Absolutely, I love him.
Wonderful. Something Rumi says about marriage, about relationships, is the art of listening. Am I really listening? So if I'm in an argument with my wife, by the way, I'm a widower, my wife has passed away, but when she's saying I'm already preparing my defense, I am not really listening. So Islamic mystics say, what is listening? Metaphorically, listening is putting your head on the person's chest and sinking into the answer. So I have learned, as best as I can, the art of really listening. What is the issue behind the issue? And then I realize, Beck, that it is not so much about this situation, that situation, I did this, did not do this. It is about the underlying feeling. Because I've listened, I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling not heard. I'm feeling ignored. So I've learned that it is not about the circumstance of the situation, blaming this or blaming that. It's about a higher understanding. And that has helped me a lot. Do you feel you're listening to your wife when she talks about something difficult?
I do my best as much as possible to listen, not only through words, but also through observing if she's cooking, if she's doing it abruptly. And I figure out that she's not in good mood, and I try to approach it in a way to make it easy for her, because it's a difficult life. Looking after kids requires a lot of energy, and I do my best to understand that it is the stress of the life that is taking away the best of her. The reason why I reached out, it is, does it matter really to have love in the marriage, or what is it? Because it's a difficult life. Looking after kids requires a lot of energy, and I do my best to understand that it is the stress of the life that is taking away the best of her. The reason why I reached out, it is, does it matter really to have love in the marriage, or what is it? Because in a world where we live with short clips, edited clips that people talk about the happy life, it looks as if did I do the right choice, or am I in the right place, or am I leading the correct lifestyle? The very, very big questions that I have, one of which is how to find that love, or the shiny love that everybody talks about in the marriage, where we had arrangement, kind of both my wife's and my choices were narrowed down to each other. Sometimes in the middle of this year, it was a difficult time, and I started to think about it, if I am in the right place, doing the right thing or not.
I think, my dear friend Beck, love certainly is the key. In the Quran it says, Allah is Al-Wadud. Allah is love. And love is the cause and essence of everything. Let me again quote Rumi, who says, our essence is love. And there is no need to seek love. Just become aware of the obstacles I have put in the way of love. So it's a wonderful exercise in self-examination for all of us. So I ask myself, and I talk to myself very compassionately. I call myself Brother Jamal. Brother Jamal, what are the obstacles I have put in the way of love? Can I become aware of the impediments that I have placed on something which is natural? All the great teachers in Islam, other religions, they say it's all about love. It's about being loved, not being loved, and really wanting to be loved. So do you talk to your wife about connecting, about getting to know the other? How well do you know each other in terms of your childhood, your upbringing, the stories of your life?
So, since we have been married, we know all the important dates, the dates of our marriage and where we went together. But other than that, that we haven't really spoken much about our childhood and, anything else. And in our culture, especially, the local culture, sharing your weakness shows you as a very fragile person, and usually you avoid sharing your weakness, including with your wife. So for that reason, I've tried to be macho man and shared very little. Perhaps that could be the reason, or I don't know. So the answer is we know each other to the point, but we don't know each other that well, and I don't know how to navigate that field.
Beck, I first want to thank you so much for your willingness to be vulnerable. You're sharing something which is so personal and something which is so common in our societies, where to be a man means that when you cry or if you talk about your feelings, it's a sign of weakness, whereas the opposite is true. The Quran says, all feelings come from God. My feelings of sadness, my feeling of pain, my feeling of anger, my negative feelings, if they're coming up, spiritual Islamic teachers say they're coming up because they're begging to be kissed, you might say. They're begging to be acknowledged. They're begging to be held. They're begging to be integrated. So you've said something very beautiful, Beck, that it is our conditioning as men in patriarchal societies not to be able to show our feelings, because we consider that to be weakness. Actually, it is a source of tremendous strength. The capacity to cry. The Quran says all feelings are sacred. So in my relationship, I would talk about my childhood and particularly talk about areas where I had feelings. I felt sad, I felt happy, I felt ignored, I felt angry. Critical to start the modeling of talking about your childhood, about your adulthood, about your different relationships, situations in your life, the circumstances, and particularly about the feelings where I felt hurt, I felt wounded. If your wife, I don't know about your wife, maybe she doesn't speak very much, but if she doesn't speak very much, to understand that she has her own story. Why she's not opening up? Maybe I'm just guessing from the women I've talked to in my community, they don't say very much because every time they've wanted to express their feelings, they got shut down. They were chided, they were scolded, and as a result of which they keep quiet. In our community, we have Muslim women in our community. We get together and we ask them, what will heal your hearts? And they tell us, please listen to our pain without interrupting, without retribution. In their life, when they've talked about their hurts, their pain, their anguish, their disappointments, there was retribution, lecturing, and actually punishment. So we have, as a community, we gather together with the women in our community, and we really listen without interrupting. And once we begin to share, not just this happened, that happened, which is important, but our feelings, then the heart opens up. The Quran says, open for me my heart, open for me my heart. As a man, as a woman in a patriarchal society, our hearts are clenched and we need to open up. So do you talk to your wife about feelings?
Not that deeply, not that much. We talk, but on a surface level, on the like a top of the surface level, but we haven't really tried to talk deeply enough, in my opinion. And I would say that is because of the lifestyle that we have chosen. Probably it's because we also live with my parents and we have got extended family, that it keeps us all always busy and with very little privacy, perhaps, that we do not spend enough time, or we do not escape together. I mean, I've been just talking to you, I'm reflecting, and I've never said these words before. And probably that could also be one of the pillars of what is blocking us from connection. We haven't talked about our feelings to each other, except that, of course, we say that cliche word of I love you on and off, especially when we are happy.
I'm glad you say that. That's beautiful.
Okay.
In my relationship, in my particular, I've heard from my parents so much. They would make time with each other, even if it's half an hour, 1 hour, or before going to sleep. Talk about something in their lives, and then talk about how they feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Could be about their childhood or some situation in their life. This is in the process of getting to know one another. Something happened, and I felt joy, or I felt hurt, I felt disappointed, but being willing to share that. And you see, once you start that process, then we can slowly move into something very critical about each other. This happened, that happened, but I want to tell you, I felt rejected. I felt not heard. I felt upset. See, when I have spoken like this to my spouse, her heart opens up, and she's willing to share her feeling. And that has brought us closer, much closer. Sharing of feelings.
Yeah, I will definitely try this. I will definitely do my best to spend time just in a privacy so we can share something very personal that we haven't shared before. And we'll see how what it grows into, and I trust that it will grow into, as you said, from being very simple stories of our childhood, maybe then it goes into more critical topics.
Yes, and again, without any fear of retribution, just listening to each other and having the trust that this will grow a deeper understanding. And by the way, Beck, do you both laugh a lot? I hope you laugh.
We do have moments when we make jokes and we laugh.
I find that to be a very critical factor, Beck. To share any opportunities through jokes, through stories. Can you find ways to be playful with your spouse? 4 beautiful children, play some games together?
Of course, yes, we try, but that's when the differences are more visible. Like even preferences for the games are kind of different. Like today, for instance, coming from school, I said, please come together with me so we can pick up our daughters. And inside the car, I said, come on, let's play one music that all of us can sing along. And our daughters and myself went for music where my wife didn't really enjoy it. So I felt guilty for starting this game of doing carpool karaoke, because we have different tastes for the music and it just didn't work.
But Beck, but I love what you're doing. So Beck, just make some sacrifices and go with her music. Start with that. And little by little, she will turn towards you with your music. But make some sacrifices. You are such a mindful person, compassionate person. I know you can do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But I like the fact, Beck, you're being creative. Please don't stop on that. Continue being creative. Find different ways. You can listen to the music, her music, your music. Find ways of laughter. Find creative ways of doing things together. But there's one more point I want to ask you. Do you both, are you both spiritual? Do you practice silence? Do you pray together? Because a wonderful way is every night, put at least 15 minutes to do something together which is spiritual, even if it's just holding hands and being in silence, just in silence together, or repeating any mantra, but doing it together. That, I tell you, Beck, can make a huge difference. So bring spirit into it, whatever your belief system is, spirit, divinity, bring that great mystery
Mm-hmm.
that is always there. I can assure you, if your wife's heart is closed, it's because of something in her life that has clenched it. And the Islamic mystics say only that which comes from the heart can open another heart. My compassion, my mercy, my patience, it will open the heart eventually. But you strike me as being very compassionate. But just put it into action with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. You're doing the best you can. And with your wife, with your spouse, and just listen to her as you encourage her to talk more about her childhood, about her life, about her feelings, as you model yours. Does that resonate for you at all?
It does, and well, I'm making already a mental note of your very wise words. Giving up has never been an option for me, and it's up to this point, it's not even an option for me. But finding ways to connect, and and hearing from people such as you who had semi-arranged marriage or arranged marriage, I look at it as a blessing. But on the other hand, deep inside my heart, I think I'm missing something, or am I missing something? So that is the question. What do you think is love? Like, can you give us your thoughts about love in the marriage?
The truth is, no one really knows. I tell you why. Love is something which arrives complete, like the moon in the sky, a season without any season. Our essence is love, your essence, your wife's essence. The question is, how do we connect? So we have to connect heart to heart. Our souls have to connect through conversation, through sharing, through honoring each other as we go through the joys and sorrows of life. And particularly, our souls will connect and bond if we share our vulnerabilities, our sadness, our pain, our anger, and to know that this is beautiful. And if I cry, tears are holy. Rumi says, tears are sacred. Tears are those waters that give life to the invisible rose gardens. It is beautiful to have genuine tears. They are the seeds of this love growing. So please feel free to cry, to laugh in your sharing with your spouse.
I will. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation and learned a lot.
I so enjoyed hearing that conversation with Beck. He was listening so deeply and with such understanding that he seemed excited to try out some of Jamal's wonderful suggestions. I'm sending lots of good wishes to Beck and his wife and hoping that this might be the start of a beautiful new stage in their relationship. I wanted to ask Jamal more about that strong and invulnerable self-image that some men have and how it can affect loving relationships. Jamal, you talked about vulnerability, and like Beck said, there are many parts of the world where men are brought up with certain ideas about masculinity and how to be strong, tough men. How can they go about unlearning some of these ideas to connect more in their relationships?
It's very difficult. That conditioning is such a burden. So how do we get over that? Somehow we have to do the inner inconvenient work of becoming aware of who we are, to become aware of our conditioning. You've got to do this inner inconvenient work of shining the light of compassionate awareness on yourself. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, die before you die. Die to all that is false within you before you die a physical death. So a short answer is maybe through a spiritual group, through a spiritual teacher. Who will teach you the art of compassionate self-witnessing. That is the best way.
And some people would say, so what's the importance of it? What is the importance of vulnerability for relationships, for love? What is the importance?
The importance is that life becomes more joyous, more complete, more fulfilling. The moment we encourage people to be vulnerable, that is when they begin to connect with the other. Before that, it's not a connection. It's just a semblance of a connection. But when we are open and we share our vulnerabilities, we connect at a heart level. I can have a mind-to-mind connection, but when my heart is connected, I can feel, I can taste the joy, the fulfillment, the beauty of it. Before that, it's a mental exercise. I'm not living.
Thank you, Imam Jamal Rahman, and thank you to Beck for contacting us with that interesting question. There was some great advice there. I'm going to try the idea of deep listening when I talk to those close to me, and I'll let you know how I get on. I'd love to hear from you if you have tried any of the advice that we have had on any of our programs. What has your experience been? I think people might find it really helpful to hear. Please contact us via our website at BBC World of Wisdom and leave us a message by clicking the Send Us a Question tab so I can read out what you say on air next week. You can find all of our past programs on our website, including editions on self-confidence, forgiveness, bereavement, regret, and even finding peace of mind in a time of war. This is the first of the final 4 editions of World of Wisdom. We started this program in the pandemic, and there are no more editions planned after January. So, if you have been intrigued by the program and wondered whether you might one day take part, then this is your last chance. Please send us your questions using that Send Us a Question tab on the BBC World of Wisdom website. We always love to hear from our listeners wherever in the world they may be. Next week, Chetna Kang will be here, and she will be offering insights to a worried father from Zambia, struggling with the weight of responsibility he feels for his adult son. For now, though, from BBC World of Wisdom producers Zoe Gelber and Charlie Taylor, and from me, Sana Safi, goodbye.